All right, I see we're at 7:01. We're going to give it another minute or two here, see if we can get anybody else to join us before we get started. In the meantime, I'm going to play with a little bit of new medical technology that I've recently received. Okay. Okay, while we wait, let me just kind of organize my stuff here, get our disclaimer open. Now, what did I just do with that? There it is. All right, somebody just dropped off again. We are at 7:03. It just turned, so we'll go ahead and say, hopefully, give it a moment. This person will come back on. I know sometimes people have connection problems. Oh, and hopefully everybody can hear me okay. All right, welcome. This is the Sunday night South Carolina Cannabis Conversation online. We do this every Sunday night. Welcome to everybody that's joined us online here tonight, and also anybody who's watching on our YouTube channel later on. Our disclaimer is all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. We do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. Close that, get that out of the way. All right. And we had shared a couple of posts. I do apologize if maybe you didn't see them. I need to get a little bit better on promoting some of the. Oh, and let me let that person in. Um, I will try and get a little bit better on giving some advance notice on our topics and such. As a matter of fact, today was the first time that I actually, let me go find this, um, posted on our website blog um, that we actually do the cannabis conversations. I don't think I had that on our blog anywhere. Or if I did, it was back a couple of months. I'm going to scroll back here real quick and look. No, nowhere on our blog at normalsc.org have I ever noted that we are doing the cannabis conversation. So I did post that today. Our website does get limited response, but of course, I think we should have that out there as well as promoting it on our other social media pages. And I know I have at least promoted it twice, if not three times, on each of our social media platforms in the past week. So I hope you did get a chance to see it. And in that post, now I'm going to have to go find it. We kind of asked people if they would go and read a couple of articles or look at a couple of articles that have to do with marijuana decriminalization in South Carolina. Okay, Michael's back in again. Um, the first one of them that I don't know which was first and which was second when I posted them out there. One was a Well, we got some bad connections tonight. People are popping in and out. Was an article from back in May of this year, 2020, that was posted in the Charleston City paper. Um, it was an opinion piece called Our View. Matter of fact, I will real quick share screens and I can show this to you. I don't think there's any copyright issues on sharing. something that's been published. So let me go ahead and click in on this. Okay, and that should be sharing now. Let me stretch my screen a little bit. So anyway, this article came out this year, back in May, and it is again talking about decriminalizing marijuana, saying it's the right thing to do in South Carolina. And this was the view again of Charleston City Paper or whoever their uh, writer was on this particular piece. Um, Starts off with a little fluff talking about the reggae song that Peter Tosh wrote in '76 called Legalize It. And now that 44 years later, marijuana uh, is legal for adults over 21 for recreational use and medical use in 11 states and for just medical use in 22 states. I believe those numbers are still pretty accurate. I don't think there's been any new legalizations outside of those 33. Um, but I'd also note here, and we've talked about this on our conversations before, the new study by the American Civil Liberties Union. That was actually new back in April. They released that April 20th. Um, and as some of you may remember, we did have Frank Knack, who was the director of South Carolina ACLU, and talking to us a little bit about some of what they're working on. And as you can see right here, um, South Carolina is ranked as the second highest number of arrests. Let's see if that actually is in here. That might be in a different document. Um, yeah, right here. Second highest rate of marijuana arrests. Chester County, located between Columbia and Charlotte, is the highest marijuana arrest in the country. Um, so we obviously, it's obvious to us anyway that we do need to work on decriminalization here in the state. Um, at least, the hemp laws are a good plus for us. The CBD laws, and even again, there's some issues on the smokable hemp or the questions on it, and that is being handled kind of on a county by county basis. And if we could just decriminalize simple possession of less than an ounce statewide, then even that little smokable hemp issue would go away. Um, I'm not going to go a whole lot into this report. But as some of you may remember, it did bring up the racial disparities in the number of arrests in the state. 4.2 times more likely if you're in Charleston County, if you're a black person to be arrested for pot than a white person, and yet whites are the larger population. But anyway, I'm not going to go in a whole bunch of that. Again, what this talks about is what's most frustrating about this whole mess is that medical marijuana use products are calming and helpful to people, especially with epilepsy, cancer, and other debilitating conditions. Um, and, this article mentions again the South Carolina Compassionate Care Act as being an avenue, but of course, how the coronavirus pandemic has basically crippled our legislative session this past season. Um, and again, I'll bring it up briefly because I always do. We're pretty sure that the Compassionate Care Act will be submitted again by Tom Davis if he wins his seat. I don't know if he will or won't. I don't know why he wouldn't, but I don't know a whole lot about that particular district, um, and I have no clue about his opponent. Um, the next paragraph in here does talk a little bit more about the arguments for decriminalization. Um, Other vices such as cigarette smoking, addictive drugs, alcohol kill thousands of Americans annually, while there's only a remote chance of dying from marijuana use. I mean, we believe that there's um, no deaths from marijuana overdose. Now, could there possibly be deaths from somebody who had smoked marijuana and gotten in a car accident from some other causes? It's possible. Um, but at least there's no OD doses like some of these other things, or the long-term health effects we're not aware of. At least studies aren't proving them out. Even where people talk about smoking cannabis and being dangerous to the lungs, most of the studies that I've seen say that actually smoked cannabis doesn't seem to have the same effect as tobacco does um, on the lungs, and can actually be uh, I want to say at least on par with the control groups, where they're seeing no real damage. Um, but while those are killing thousands of people annually, cannabis is still illegal. The other side of it is the opioid epidemic, and how dangerous that is, and how pot could actually help keep uh, people from using opioids or get them off of opioids. Um, it also mentions in here how marijuana criminalization is expensive, building new prisons, filling these prisons, um, prosecution, all the things that are involved. And this does also talk about then the additional hurdles that people have to handle after an arrest. Is this one that mentioned it? I read two different articles, so I'm a little mixed on the two. Um, Anyway, that was the city paper article. It really didn't go a whole lot further on that, just saying that they're all good arguments. But the reason to move forward now is just because it's the right and compassionate thing to do. The other article that I asked y'all to read, actually, I didn't complete everything on here, so I will look over a little bit with this on you today. But I'm going to kind of give a rough guess that a lot of what this is talking about is, well, I can tell just by some of these headlines: estimates for expenditures and tax revenue, the amount of costs that go into the marijuana industry, or the drug war, shall we say. Table one shows estimated state, local criminal justice expenditures related to drug prohibition in 2016. In nearly all categories, estimated expenditure has risen, all but slightly. For all drugs, the estimate is $29.4 billion. For marijuana, $6 billion for a single year. And that hasn't gone down from then, it still goes up. Um, and I see, again, I'm talking billion with B's. Um, uh, I, as the director of NORML, do not really get involved a whole lot into the fight for decriminalization of all drugs. I don't disagree with that concept. Matter of fact, in some of my visits with the SSDP students over at College of Charleston, and just listening to their arguments on the reasons for decriminalizing all drugs, um, much of it are the same arguments that we have for uh, decriminalizing cannabis. And again, a lot of that is the cost. It is expensive to uh, have a war on drugs, and it is, as many of you may agree, uh, the war on drugs is a war on the people that use the drugs. So it's a war on people for the most part. Here is those tables that it mentioned up above on the expenditures attributed to drug prohibition in 2016. These are a bit older numbers. The ACLU report was based on the results of 2018, which are the newest numbers available. So these numbers that we're talking about here on this article are 2016, but then again, this article was from 2 years ago. So I apologize for an old article on this particular one, July 2018. Um, so I'm going to scroll down here a little bit because we have states, all drugs, marijuana here. Okay, let me look at these. We're going to go down to South Carolina. I'm assuming this is in the millions now. 158 million for all drugs, 67 million for marijuana only. The other two categories: heroin, cocaine, and then other. So we'll go back to South Carolina here. 47 million. At least it's not as much as they're putting in towards some of the other drugs, but that's still an awful lot of money, and especially since half of all drug arrests in the nation are for simple possession of marijuana. I don't have the exact numbers for the state here, but this is a lot of money that our government is spending that could probably go to a lot better things. And again, my belief is that if this money were spent on better social programs, addressing the cause of addiction, we may have less problems with addiction. Um, I am real quick going to just kind of scan some of this. These are revenues of billions of dollars. I'm assuming these are revenues generated from. I don't know if this is from asset forfeiture. So they're claiming they're generating revenue, $61 million. Oh, okay. Table 5 estimates the tax revenue generated by each state by allocating the estimates from Table 4. Uh, so if we legalize, there's where I have to read things a little closer. If we were to legalize marijuana or legalize drugs, they could generate billions of tax dollars, is what these particular tables are claiming. So the claim is if they legalized marijuana in South Carolina, the tax revenue from marijuana would be approximately $61 million. If they legalized all drugs, and again, I can't imagine any place decriminalizing is one thing, legalizing for resale, I'd still have to have some considerations on that. Summary of expenditures for savings and additional revenues from legalization in billions of dollars. Okay. Again, I apologize. I did not go through all these numbers, but in essence, all of this is saying is that legalization is good for the state budgets, for federal budgets. Um, Decriminalization would be better because, again, we would be spending a lot less money of taxpayers' dollars on trying to house criminals in prison. And look at at Charleston as a good example. Back in December of 2019, so about a little less than a year ago, they de-emphasized arrests on simple possession of marijuana because a jail that was built for 600 people had three times that population imprisoned. And so the way to resolve that was stop locking up people for simple possession, and is what Charleston County ended up doing, or at least the city of Charleston is. They were definitely de-emphasized it. I couldn't tell you exactly for North Charleston. Um, because I hear that they're still pretty aggressive in North Charleston with marijuana arrests, but I don't know that for certain. Uh, the problem in South Carolina to decriminalize is to do it at a state level, we would need to have a lawmaker um, draft and sponsor a bill. That I don't see as being a problem. There were at least three decriminalization bills relatively simple. I think they were all kind of copied from one another last session. One of them got, I think, a couple of co-sponsors because they got the drafters of the other ones to co-sponsor the one. Um, and my goal as a NORML director here in the state of South Carolina is to um, encourage that legislator. Again, I don't think they're up for election this cycle, or if they win, to get a no fine, no time, no court cost um, decriminalization bill proposed at state level. Um, okay, it looks like we've got everybody kind of back on and pretty steady connections for the moment. So anyway, my goal this year is to kind of get that legislator or a legislator to sponsor a zero fine, zero time, zero court cost decrim bill, which is not what any of the three were in the past. They did have some sort of a a fine or a ticket, and I believe the ticketing was like $100 on those or something like that. Still a revenue generating kind of situation. I'd like to see revenue removed from this completely on simple possession. And those are the petitions that we circulate for the local ballot initiatives, or no fine, no time, no court cost. Um, Start there, and that way, if they have to give up a little something when at the state level, maybe they turn it into a $25 ticket. I don't think I would oppose that hard. Um, the problem here in South Carolina is that's the only way to get it done at the state level. We do not have a state level ballot initiative process. Matter of fact, just before we were starting the meeting, I was watching a YouTube video on the ballot initiative process. And of course, I was hoping it would be what I consider to be the voter initiative process, which is where the voters start the initiative. Um, but it wasn't. It was again It was a video on the state level and how to get a state level legislator to. I think that one was, if you get 25 voters to sign your proposal bill to a legislator, they have to review it and I don't know if they have to sponsor it, but I think they do. I didn't finish watching the video because it didn't necessarily relate to South Carolina. South Carolina only has the voter initiative option at county and municipal level. And so, those of you that have been on with me for a number of these Sunday nights um, have heard me talk about that we do have three petitions: one for the city of Charleston, one for the town of James Island, and one for Folly Beach, that are kind of sitting gathering dust um, in a file over in my where I keep all my NORML stuff stored. Um, we are planning on getting them out, dusting them off. I've had a brief discussion with Kristen about maybe I start getting a vendor booth out again and actually getting out and physically collecting the signatures. Unfortunately, the system does not allow us to do uh, electronic signatures. Once you print that petition is a legal document, and you need a physical signature on a legal document to initiate the voter initiative process in South Carolina. And then you need to get 15% of the registered voters in that particular municipality or county to sign your petitions. And then you submit them to, I think it's like voter register, the voter board. Um, and they will go through and they will confirm all of those signatures that they are actually registered voters. And if you don't hit your 15%, it goes nowhere. If you do hit your 15%, it's supposed to go on the ballot, although there are ways that legislators will try and challenge it, to delay it, to obstruct it. But that's basically what the process is. The reason, and again, I'll mention it because though you probably all heard me say it over and over again, I'm planning on again really dusting off and targeting Folly Beach because I only need 400 signatures there. It's a relatively small number. Um, and I think with some effort we should get it. The problem is again going out in public. It's a little scary. Again, I'm watching the news and they're talking about this third wave, how the numbers are still in South Carolina between 900 and 1,000 new cases a day, up 15% from like the last low or something, which is actually lower than a lot of other states, but still. Uh, uh, so I'm dragging my feet on making any decisions on going out in public a whole lot. Although I think we could probably set up our booth where we've got enough separation. As people come up, we can still talk to them, have a little, barrier behind or something, or just hanging a clear shower curtain or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But that is really, in my opinion, besides getting on board, getting the legislators to get moving, is that's the only way we're going to do it here in South Carolina, is go town by town, little municipality by municipality, get the small ones first because those hopefully would be easier, and build some momentum. And once we build some momentum, then we can maybe get more people in the larger communities to get come on out and start signing up. We did try and run these 2019. We haven't really pushed anything in 2020. And I'll be honest with you, I felt a little hung out to dry. It maybe is the way to put it, because I really didn't feel there were a lot of people that wanted to get involved in actually circulating petitions in other communities. My goal was to find a couple of maybe volunteer coordinators, and one person that might live over on Daniel Island and could coordinate some activities over there, one person maybe in West Ashley inside the loop, maybe one person outside the loop, as long as we're still within the city limits of Charleston. uh, Somebody here in on James Island to help again coordinate these activities, because personally, I don't know a lot of these areas. I think I may have been on Daniel Island once. Um, and I've got, as director of the organization, I do have a lot of other things kind of on my plate. So I really can't be handling all the coordination of all the signature collection events. Um, so I'm hoping as we go forward into the new season, we can get us some other folks that are interested in jumping on board and saying, "Hey, Scott, we agree with you. This is the only way we're really going to get anything to move forward here in South Carolina is by getting out there, hitting the pavement, getting people to sign our petitions." Um, do I have it behind me real quick? I'm going to grab this. Maybe a little outdated, but I would bet most of it's pretty accurate. This is my list of all the registered voters in Folly Beach. So there's a couple thousand people here. Um, we can go door to door if we have to, and that might be where we start going. Um, I haven't talked to the students at SSDP over at College of Charleston about going door to door yet, but I will be. I'll probably be over there next Wednesday talking with them a little bit. And we can, these aren't free. I think this thing cost me about 75 bucks just for this particular one. We can get a digital version for the entire city of Charleston. And once we have a digital version of it, we can go ahead and print out copies as need be. Um, that's a much larger list, and I forget what that's going to cost because I looked into it about 2 years ago. Like I say, this one was about 75 bucks for a printed hard copy, because I think the digital versions were almost twice that, plus a certain fee for every extra 1,000 people on the list. If I recall correctly, it's going to cost about $300 or $350 to get the entire list for Charleston as a digital copy, which wouldn't be bad, because then we could still, like I say, print it out, share it out to all of our signature collectors. But if we don't get a bunch of signature collectors and coordinators for those collectors, it's just going to be money thrown down the drain. So I'm going to hold off on any of that kind of concept for now. As far as pushing for the state level, my plan so far, excuse me, and this may change as we move forward, but we had a relatively good success with our letter campaign to uh, ask people to email the candidates and find out their position on marijuana. We'll probably be using another letter campaign right as we find out what these decrim bills are, and we'll create a letter campaign at that point, and we'll ask all of our all registered voters in the state to go and send this letter to their legislator, saying, please sign on to this decrim bill, blah blah blah, because that's pretty much what we'll do. We'll create a letter discussing this decrim bill, discussing a little bit about the benefits of decriminalization here in the state, and then the ask of, would you please sign on as a co-sponsor to this decrim bill? Please vote for it, blah, blah, blah. Last cycle, like I said, I think there was at least 3 decrim bills, but I hadn't even heard of anything about them until I actually went and did a search on the South Carolina House legislator site. And we had, I think, 11 different medical, different bills that had the word marijuana in them. Three of them were those decrim bills. Two of them were versions of the Compassionate Care Act. I think at least one of them talked about civil asset forfeiture. That will again be another avenue we will push very heavily for in this coming cycle. Any civil asset forfeiture reduction type or abolishment, personally, I think would be best. Although I have heard, I think the sheriff of Greenville and I forget who the other guy was. I think he was a union representative, um, the one that called it legal civil asset forfeiture when all things considered, civil asset forfeiture is is a violation of the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. It is not legal. um, then again, prohibition of marijuana is not necessarily legal by those particular things either. Um, Let me just real quick check, see what we have here in chat. Hello from Joey, and thank you for reminding everybody to get out and vote. I did mine by mail because I expected to be working the polls on Tuesday, but because of some of my health issues and my surgery, somehow or another, I missed getting my training done. I meant to do this when logging on and showing everybody. My nose is a little red and swollen right now, but actually, no, I've healed up pretty well. Had another appointment recently with this past Thursday with the doctor, and I'll have one more in about 2 weeks. So that's all kind of falling through. And with that in mind, I have been feeling a lot better. Um, I'm getting excited that we're getting some new legislators in here and that we're coming up with a game plan for the new year that's going to be addressing the decriminalization, the civil asset forfeiture, and the decrim at both state level as best we can, and of course the voter initiative process. Um, um, I think again those are going to be our best ways forward. Now, mind you, if we get them to pass a bill at legislative level, um, then doing the voter initiative process really is moot. But what happened in the state that I moved here from, Pennsylvania, they were going around to decriminalizing in this town and that town. And basically, what that was is, and I don't know if they were doing the no fine, no time. They were probably doing small fine, $25 to $100 fine, like ticket type thing, and scooting you on your way. Uh, Probably my guess confiscating the person's cannabis and things like that at that same time. Since then, they've decriminalized for medical use completely in that particular state, and they are pretty darn close to decriminalizing for recreational. Both their governor and their lieutenant governor are advocating for legislation to be proposed. They can't propose it. That's up to uh, the legislators, the senators, and the representatives. Um, but I believe it's moving forward. Again, Pennsylvania is another state that does not do state level voter referendum, so they can't get the voters out to vote on it in that state either. Um, and their governor is stating a lot exactly what we talked about a little bit earlier. It's going to fill in some of the gaps in their budget shortfall that's caused because of this coronavirus. Um, Decriminalizing here in South Carolina, is it really going to help fill gaps like that? Probably not, because it's not generating tax revenue. There you would have to legalize and implement a sales system. And of course, why do we want it legalized? So that there can be a regulatory system to make sure that the quality of the product that's coming into the state and available to the consumer is of good quality, doesn't happen to have mold on it, isn't contaminated with pesticides, um, gives the customer a variety of strains to choose from, or even uh, products to choose from. They may prefer an edible, they may prefer a tincture, they may prefer, something else. And of course, we strongly believe that a smokable flower or a flower option should be available in the state. And we also believe that a home grow options should be available in the state when legalization comes. Um, but all of that is kind of, again, a moot point at this point in South Carolina until they get somebody to actually propose a full legalization. Um, very excited. Let me see if I can find this here on Facebook before I get too far away from it. Um, Tuesday, there are 5 states. Let me see if I can find the article I shared that do have marijuana on their ballot. Come on, how long ago did they? Yep, 5 states. There we go. So we're really crossing our fingers for those 5 states. 5 states in one particular day, and one of those states, I don't remember which, if that was Arizona. One of those states will be voting on both medical and recreational on the same day as a voter initiative, as a ballot initiative, ballot measure. Yeah, for some reason I'm thinking that was Arizona. And that's the first time that this has happened, that both recreational and medical were on the ballot at the same time in any particular state. Um, so we have Arizona, Mississippi, Montana, New Jersey, and South Dakota that will be voting. Um, Teresa, very good information that you just posted there in the chat. Anybody, if you didn't see it yet, uh, forget about it. I love it. Good. I know they were phone banking in Arizona through NORML this past week, pretty hard, past 2 weeks. Look secure, and that all seems to sound pretty about right. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, Teresa. So that's big news for us all, because if we get 5 more states to add on, even just the medical, if the one state that's doing both, they get both. Oh, okay. A Nebraska vote got canceled. Okay, I didn't see them on this particular list. All right. Um, but that would be huge, I think, in my mind. And of course, talking elections, and I did warn you, I'd talk a little bit about this last week. Um, we do have the race here in South Carolina between Lindsey Graham and Jamie Harrison. And I know, I think Lindsey has just recently come on board and said, "Oh yeah, I'm for medical." But I think that was just like a last minute grab for some votes. I don't really believe him when he says that. Lindsey Harrison's claim seems to be a little bit more genuine. That he believes in decriminalization, understands the harm it's done in poor communities, things like that. So that's a big vote, because Graham is considered one of the 3 horsemen of the apocalypse when it comes to those that are roadblocking marijuana legislation in at the federal level. Uh, Also, Mitch McConnell in Kentucky, and I don't know where Mike Crapo is from. Let me see where Mike Crapo is from. Idaho. So he's the third one in that little list. I'm gonna have to look into that Nebraska stuff a little bit more. That sounds odd that they got a Supreme Court decision in their favor over a voter initiative or over a ballot initiative. It sounds interesting. Um, Damn opposition. But um, so that was my other big kind of point here in South Carolina is Lindsey Graham. Um, Vote your heart, but don't vote for Lindsey. I mean, unless you must. But yeah, you won't be any less of a friend, but it'll sting. It'll sting the heart. Thank you. Yes, I agree. uh, and locally here for me, we have Joe Cunningham against Nancy Mason. Although Nancy Mace claims to be pro cannabis, again, her explanations of it have been kind of very reserved, very restricted. Joe hasn't been quite as open as I'd like him to be. He has not signed on to the Cannabis Coalition or the Cannabis Caucus, and I've asked him repeatedly. He has not, as far as I know, signed on to the veterans research of the two veterans bills, and he is on a veterans committee. He is, a lot about our vets. South Carolina has a lot of, bases and military activity here. We get big planes flying over all the time. Um, but anyway, again, my opinion, I'd really rather see Joe in there for his opinions on marijuana than Nancy Mason. And again, that is a federal level election at the state level. Um, and that's where we are. If you haven't already, don't forget to vote. Um, yeah, I think she's probably around there. Thank you for that, Teresa. Um, any other input or comments for? I mean, I've babbled at y'all for over half an hour, probably close to 40 minutes now. Did I get anything or say anything incorrect, or do you have any like thoughts on the decriminalization process in South Carolina and maybe a better way to implement it, or um, and I'll ask you now, and you don't have to answer now, but I'll ask you all now if you come up with any kind of creative ideas on how to collect signatures for our petitions on being out in public and actually collecting them somehow. I know on some a guide that I got along with some of the original petitions, they talked about like setting up in a parking lot where you have an entrance at one end and an exit in the other, and you do sort of a drive through. Um, any suggestions will definitely be appreciated. But like I say, once we get the election over, it's probably going to take us yeah, a week until we have a good idea of the count on who's won what seats. We'll start addressing, as I mentioned to y'all before, addressing a welcome type letter to all the new candidates, or actually to the entire new legislation as they get on board. Um, and hopefully we can come up with a game plan on sending out some of these books and some other updated information to them. Um, but otherwise, I think that's kind of where we are. And yeah, again, looks like somebody may be connecting in the audio to talk. But any thoughts on the decriminalization process or how we can kind of push it? Um, that would be best. I'll say it again, and I know I've said it before. They've already been trying to work on Medical with Compassionate Care Act for 6 years now, and it's progressed a little bit better, I think, each legislative cycle. But there's still no guarantee it's going to pass with again the next 2 years cycle. Um, and I think a greater benefit to the taxpayer and to the community at large um, is going to be getting some decriminalization legislation passed. Um, I think that's just going to be best overall, all around, and that way it addresses some of these counties that have the high arrest rates. Um, and again, locking people up for cannabis. So, any other thoughts on that? Again, if you don't have them this evening, shoot me an email. Y'all know my email, or our email is lowcountrynormal, NORML, @gmail.com. You can find our website at normalsc.org. We hang out way too much on Facebook. We also do have our Instagram and Twitter feeds that we do post to pretty regularly. And don't forget our YouTube channel where you can always find our meetings and our South Carolina cannabis conversations. We stream them live to there, and you can always go back and view them again if you missed them, or if you want to just listen to me all over again. um, Let's see. We're at 7:45, so I think we're pretty good, and I think we should probably wrap it up. I will be back again then next Sunday at 7 o'clock. I will get a topic posted probably by Wednesday. We'll do a little recap of the elections, I'm sure. Let's see. We got a new message popped up down below. Yeah. That's one of the big things in the Compassionate Care Act that I do not like is that 50% of the tax revenue is going to SLED and the 46 county sheriff's offices. I even mentioned it. I called it a bribe to a legislator one time, and they went, "Oh no, it's not a bribe, and they have additional expenses they're going to have to face." No, it was a bribe. Um, so that is definitely one reason why we do not necessarily outright support the Compassionate Care Act is that particular language in there on giving all that money to enforcement.
Hey,
There's a
Scott.
couple of other things in there too that talk about uh, criminal increased criminal penalties. The one that I kind of talk about was if somebody misrepresents themselves as a cardholder cannabis patient, they can get additional fines. I believe it was $1,000 written into that. And that could be as simple as somebody saying, "Yo, officer, it's just my medicine." And the officer at that says, "Oh, your medicine? Are you implying that you're a card holder?" That's a crime to do that if you imply it and you're not really one or claim so. The other was, what was it, a $5,000 5-year in prison if you're caught somehow or another taking medical cannabis out of the system for recreational use to somebody, and I think that again needs to be changed. That needs to be taken out of there. Lastly, on of course the Compassionate Care Act, it's just way too restrictive. There's not enough qualifying conditions in there. Uh, we'll see again as we get a new legislature in there. I would like to see a new bill written, drafted based on what some other successful states are doing and not the strictest bill, as Tom Davis puts it, the strictest medical bill in the nation, and drawing this hard line between medical and recreational.
Mm.
Uh, Anywho, where was I in that? That's kind of it, I think, for legislation right now. We'll talk about that again a bit more next week when we do our kind of voter election review. And
9:30 to 5:30.
any other comments from you all? Otherwise, I'm going to kind of scoot on out of here. Nah, it looks like you're all happy for now. Thank you for visiting me. Appreciate. Oh, I see a wave. Do you have something to say there, Mike? Or are you just waving goodbye?
No, actually,
Okay, you're on. Cool.
okay, yeah, I'm here. Um, do you really think South Carolina is gonna eventually go to this? I mean, this is like the reddest state in the United States. I mean, it's really ridiculous.
Well, I believe it is eventually going to happen. Now that eventuality could be years down the road. Um, I think I saw a statistic the other day that South Carolina is now the only state in the nation that does not have at least one border touching on a state that is legal for at least medical purposes,
True.
not
Yes.
not including hemp. Um, so we're still kind of this little island, but they're moving in closer and closer, and at some point they're just going to have to.
So
Well,
okay, so riddle me this. I mean, if it's federally approved for recreational use, I mean, the states still have the options to buck that system.
correct. Correct. The state could still say, well, yeah, sure, federal, they dropped it off the Controlled Substance Act completely. There's no laws federally at all about it. If that would happen, South Carolina could say, states' rights, it's still illegal here, motherfucker.
Right, right,
they
exactly,
they
exactly.
very well could. Legalization at federal level does not change the state laws.
Right.
So we're stuck trying to change the state laws somehow. And again, because we don't have the voter initiative or the ballot initiative option to be able to get it on the ballot and vote for it, we have to go through the ballot initiative process at the municipal level and get the towns to kind of decriminalize, because in that process you
Agreed. Absolutely.
because in that process you can't go against state law. You can't like legalize it in Charleston.
Right. Right.
So, but you can go against, you address the penalty phase, and that's basically all decriminalization does, is it addresses the penalty phase. But once you get enough small towns or enough population in the state to decriminalize, you're going to kind of push them at state level to say, let's just decriminalize at state level. I mean, that's my belief, is if we can get it at municipal levels at enough small municipalities across the state, and a majority of the population is like right around the Charleston area. You got a lot of Charleston,
Absolutely.
a huge
Absolutely.
population here.
Scott,
Um,
I'm in the upstate.
oh, okay.
I'm
So
up
you've
in
got a you've
Easley.
got a bigger battle in the upstate.
Oh my gosh, it's Trump Central here, man. It's
I
like,
feel for you.
thank you. I appreciate that. It's hurtful,
And the
but
sad thing about it is cannabis legalization, decriminalization isn't necessarily a partisan issue. Um,
no, not at all.
there are maybe less Republicans that support recreational and medical, but it's not. It's still a majority. It's still a majority that support legalization for at least medical, and still a majority that support for recreational in the Republican Party. So it's not necessarily a partisan issue, although the legislators, I mean, I'm talking voters. It's not a partisan issue. It's not, but when you're talking about the legislators,
Right.
now you see the partisanship in it, because you don't see the Republican legislators sponsoring legislation or signing on as co-sponsors to the legislation.
And,
Um,
and honestly, Scott, I believe it's
that
more than
that
that.
much.
I believe it's more than that. I mean, when you can't drive a quarter of a mile down any South Carolina road without seeing a church, you can't drive a quarter of a mile anywhere in South Carolina without seeing a church. Everyone is against the legalization of marijuana in this state. I mean, it's the guys underground, the guys that need it for other things, that are not 17 and experimenting, the guys that really need something to help them out medically. That it's not being seen. The eyes are closed in this state, and I believe it starts from every quarter mile down the road. You see a church.
Well, I think a while back I may have agreed with you on that, but I'm swaying a little bit. I'm seeing, especially in the medical support. Now, there's a divide between the medical supporting advocacy groups and normal, because because legislators have this belief that normal just wants recreational use. We want all kinds of
Right.
legislative change, uh,
Absolutely.
but but the medical groups kind of avoid connecting with us too much, because they don't want to be seen associated with the guys that want recreational. But in those groups, and of course I'm part of those groups as well, I do see a lot of religious people or faithful people that will be fighting for the purpose of saying, hey, this is a plant. It talks about it in the Bible. It's a gift from God.
Uh,
Why won't they legalize it for us? But you are also right in the respect that a majority of the religious right are still against cannabis in every way, shape, or form, because they've been so indoctrinated over the past 80 plus years,
yeah, yeah.
especially
Alcohol and
the
tobacco is fine,
right, right. And
and I agree with you.
unfortunately, it's a matter of
My
education.
buddy,
And
yeah, I agree with you. My buddy Joey and Tony, they're online, and these guys are same thing. I know I'm with the same group here. I appreciate it, Scott. I really do. Is that a margarita?
no, it's not. It's diluted pineapple juice. But I like the thought. A quart jar with margarita in, man, I'd be on my
Absolutely.
way.
Couldn't hurt.
No, well, except for my stomach issues, I can't drink alcohol lately. It's been probably about 2 years or more since I've had any alcohol.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's why I go to the doctor. Hopefully, they get me fixed up, and I can start drinking at least a little bit again. Because
Absolutely.
I'm not a big drinker, but at the holidays, I like a good Irish coffee at Christmas time, or that kind of
Sure.
stuff. And I don't mind a gin and tonic in the summer every now and again. And but yeah, what ends up now I drink, and it just sets off my freaking irritable whatever it is in my stomach.
Right. I mean, but hey, smoke a couple of tokes off the bowl and everything's fine.
That helps calm the stomach. It does.
Absolutely. Everything's
It
fine.
does. So, yeah, so that's kind of where we are at with that. And I appreciate your input, but I yeah. And that's where I'm even, again, I'm going to probably say this is with the collection of the signatures that we're trying to do for the decriminalization type petitions. To pull into a small town is one thing if it's Folly Beach, where they kind of relate Folly and James Island, where I'm at, is sort of like the Jimmy Buffett beach, whereas you go over to
Oh
Mount
yeah.
Pleasant, it's more the hoity toity beach or something.
Right. Sullivan's
Um,
Island. Yeah. Even more so.
but even trying to get them out to sign their petitions in Folly's a challenge. I don't know.
Wow.
First off, you can't find them in tourist season. So to hit Folly, we have to start like I'll be starting as soon as the elections are over. I'm figuring between
Right.
November
Right.
and the end of February. That's my window to catch the residents of Folly Beach and get these petitions signed. Um, after that, I'll go after the city of Charleston. I'd really rather find some other small towns because if I can do a small town and a small town and a small town, then you're going to get a little bit of newspaper or media attention, and then you're going to get a
Absolutely.
little bit of a
Well,
wave, and then you can move on to the next town and get that wave a little bigger. And that's
South
again
Carolina,
what I saw them do up in.
South Carolina's eat up with little towns. They're just eat up with little towns. You got a plethora of little towns.
Yeah, I just have to be careful on which ones I walk into that have the snakes with churches, churches with snakes or whatever. Then maybe that's
Right.
up in Appalachia a little
Right.
bit more,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but I still have to be a little cautious about what town I walk into,
Right.
so
Sure.
they don't
I
run
mean,
me out armed and dangerous.
we're in Easley, and it's like, oh man, it's a little scary up here.
Yeah, I do. I've mentioned it on these conversations a number of times, but I have this a little bit of an addiction of watching what they call First Amendment audits on YouTube, and
Oh
it's
God, I love
basically
those.
you watch them too. Okay, and
Absolutely.
they've gone out a couple times locally in South Carolina, so I love when they're right here in the state. Matter of fact, I saw one not too long ago right at the Charleston post office. And I'm thinking, damn, why didn't they call me? I would have come along. Uh, but anyway, that's
Yeah.
where we are tonight, folks. I don't want to hold you up any longer. I see our hour's almost up. I'm going to
Hey, it
real
was fun for
quick
me.
take a
Thank you.
peek. Thank you for joining us, Mike. And we're here every Sunday, 7 o'clock, right back here, the same link. Oh, before you all go, I do have one question. And I'm hoping you can chime in either on chat or open up your mic. I've had some requests on changing the to a weeknight instead of a Sunday night for these conversations.
It's football season, dude.
It's football season. People have their oh well, football season Monday wouldn't work then either because then there's Monday
No.
night football.
Right.
Oh, that wouldn't work. Does anybody have a thought of a weeknight versus a Sunday night? I mean, I like Sunday nights, mind you, but and I don't watch football, so Monday
Oh,
would work for me. But
uh,
if
to,
anybody has any thought on a weeknight
Friday,
that they would prefer,
Saturday, Friday.
yeah, any weeknight except wait, say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Not Thursday, man. Football.
Oh yeah, okay, then Tuesday or Wednesday. I know
okay.
somebody wants to watch country wrestling.
I'm seeing a thumbs up on from Mike. I'm assuming that's for Wednesday. I see
Yeah,
Joey in comments said Wednesdays. I
Wednesday's
Wednesday.
think
good.
start. I think starting January. Sorry about that. I know we're in football season, but I've already got these all scheduled on Zoom until the end of the year. But I'm
Mm,
thinking starting January, we'll switch them to Wednesday nights.
Sounds
good.
good.
That'll be great.
I'll be back.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, great. We'll see you all next Sunday. Again, watch our Facebook page or one of our social medias for whatever topic. Some of it will be election review, but I'll probably bring up a little bit something else to talk about. So keep an eye out there. Kristen gave me a good suggestion a couple of weeks ago of share a link to an article or a video or something that we can discuss. So I've been kind of following with that. But besides that, again, thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here again next Sunday at 7 o'clock. Have a good night.